Welcome to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast. We thank you that you are here. Thanks to all who are listening, and thanks to all who spread the word about our podcast. We have a unique experience here. As you know, we talk about things where we're reaching out to the regular person wanting to live their Catholic faith, or just wanting to learn more about their Catholic faith, or about the Catholic faith in general, as opposed to dealing with the influencers who are always giving you their take on the rules of the faith, or what they may have learned was said in some council 1,500 years ago that means that everything you do today is a mortal sin. We're not part of that group. As you know, we're here to bring you, as the regular person trying to live their Catholic faith, what the Catholic faith actually teaches. And we have an interesting principle today. First of all, we're continuing in the second half of the program our interview with Justin from empty-chairs.org, also Empty Chairs Home on YouTube, either of those two places, about his ministry to help gay Catholics come to know their Catholic or live their Catholic faith, which means go to church, go to Mass, go to confession, go participate as you feel called. And I can talk about that in a little while too. But we begin with continuing with the first reading. We are now in the New Testament. Remember, for the past several weeks, we've been in a Torah, and now, and then we went into the book of Judges. Now we're in the New Testament. We're in the letter, St. Paul's letter to the Thessalonians, the first of them. And there is a theme he makes in the letter that fits perfectly with our theme for this interview with Justin this part of the week. We're going to continue with Justin tomorrow, too. And that is something that even St. Augustine talked about, and the other saints. And what it is understanding how to pastorally minister. You're going to hear me talk in the interview in the second half of the program about people who leave nasty comments on Justin's YouTube site. And I'm sure apparently he also indicated he gets them on his website. Well, here's the thing to understand, because people are always ready to give nasty comments. Some of them traffic in the sin of detraction, which St. John Vianney called one of the worst of all sins. And they're all in the name of what they call orthodoxy. But the saints always said that you minister gently. And this is one of the words we see today. Now, as you know, I don't read the readings, but if you go to 1 Thessalonians 2, 1 through 8, or you can find it at bible.usccb.org, you're going to find the passage we're going to look at today. And one of the things you will see is that St. Paul is explaining how he does his ministry, what are his pure motives, because he wants to preach the gospel and he wants to make sure people hear the gospel. And so he's teaching it, and he's teaching it to the Thessalonians who have embraced the gospel, and he's praising them for living it as he has called them to live it. But he also makes it clear the way he ministered was gently. This is something that we have in the church called pastoral ministry. And you will see some of these influencers say, oh, no, we can't have pastoral ministry. We have to believe the rules, and we have to follow the rules, and we have to live by the rules. The saints taught pastoral ministry. And what it is not to change the rules, but to teach someone gently so that they may understand what it is we actually believe. But there were people that will be very strict. You heard me talk last Friday. If you haven't heard it, you can look it up over on your favorite podcast platform. And this was the show from April 22nd. And it was the case of a priest in confession who tore someone apart, who went to the confessional and was so hurt by the way the confessional happened, and the priest acts. If this is what the priest actually did, it was absolutely incorrect what he did, and he was so devastated. He says, "I may go to mass maybe once a month now. I'm not going to return on a regular basis because of the way I was treated, and I will never go to communion because of the way I was treated." And all the saints, including St. Paul, said, never do that. Ever are we called to do that. And this is one of the real problems we see in the faith. I think one of the best examples, there was this video online, this priest, and they were always saying, "Oh, this is wonderful." And he's preaching about how he had very serious concerns about the soul of Joe Biden. Okay, all right, fine. I don't agree with him using that as a theme. And you know why? Because Joe Biden wasn't in the congregation. And actually, you wouldn't want to single him out if he was in the congregation. But why are you speaking to everyone else about Joe Biden? This was obviously, I think it was in his first year of presidency. Why are you speaking to everyone else about Joe Biden? You need to speak to people about what builds their faith, what leads them to make a better witness, what makes them to be better disciples. Yes, if you want to preach on sin, that's fine, but preach on the sin as it affects them. If you want to preach on Joe Biden and he's not in your congregation, not even in your state, I think the priest was somewhere in the Midwest. I can't remember, but somewhere in the Midwest. So unless he was in Washington or he was in Delaware, he had no business preaching. And the people need to know how they need to live the gospel as witnesses. And St. Paul said he taught gently. The saints always explain, do it gently, because when you are harsh, you turn people away and you lead people away from the same gospel that you are calling them to live. I remember a long time, of course, this actually would be completely wrong, but there was this, now of course I'm talking, this is my mother's time, so she told me the story. But this was uncommon, at least in certain parishes, and probably more New England than anywhere else. This was in Boston. But a lot of times the priests would yell at parishioners. It was terrifying for them. And she said she was a little girl, and, I don't know, she could have been any age, but I don't remember what age she told me. Of course, my mother has passed away now. She died in 2006. But she said that there was this man who went to confession, and the priest was screaming from the confessional so much that other people could hear it, which is absolutely forbidden. "You did what?" And he just continued screaming at him. And she didn't remember what he actually said, because, of course, she was just a young child when she heard it. My mother was born in 1925. But you can see that was believed, that was appropriate pastoral ministry. None of the saints ever said that was okay. None of them ever said that. I was talking to a priest the other day, and which I kind of do on a regular basis, I guess you'd guess. And he was saying that generally the rule is you can be lions in the pulpit, but lambs in the confessional. And I remember there was a priest, a really kind of interesting. He was literally one of the funniest guys I ever knew, but he was so stern in the pulpit. He was very, very stern, but he was a great guy in confession. He was a great priest to go to in confession. And the other part of that, which was really funny, was he used to, when he was the parochial vicar at the parish I was when I came out of the Navy, went to my hometown. So he was the parochial vicar there. And I have to be honest, he was an awful preacher. He really was. And I don't mean stern and angry. He just was a lousy preacher. It just happens. But but he was stern, but it wasn't because he was stern. He's just bad at it. But when he was off the altar, he was an absolute funny guy, and he was great in confession. And he didn't like Vatican II. Of course, I love Vatican II. I'm fully embrace it and everything, but he didn't like Vatican II. And so he actually had permission to actually do the old prayers and do the old mass and the whole bit. But you'd expect him to be very stern all the time. He wasn't. He was one of the funniest guys I ever met. And he did understand that principle, although I told you he wasn't a very good preacher. But be like a lion in the pulpit, but be like a lamb in the confessional. Now, I come from a totally different perspective because I'm really not a lion in the pulpit. I mean, I speak on sin when I need to, and but what I actually do is my whole thing is teaching people to be good witnesses of the gospel. So if anyone has ever heard my homilies, you will know that the most important thing for me, and this is the most central thing for me in the whole issue of the gospel, is you have to be a person of prayer. And if you're not praying, I don't care how well you're following the rules, you're not being a good witness. Praying is essential. And remember, when St. Paul is talking, he's talking to people who are involved in praying in their communities, who are involved in actually what we would call today charismatic prayer. The charismatic prayers that are known within the charismatic renewal today were very common in all Christian communities for the first 300 years of the church. But Paul is speaking to those people and saying, yes, but you have to be pastoral. You have to be gentle. And if you're not being gentle, you want to get up there and you want to be stern, and you want to be stern to people in the confessional, well, then you're missing the point, because you have to be pastoral. You have to be gentle, because that is what the Holy Spirit mandates. That you can't be this person being strict and yelling, as we heard in the show on August 22nd. So this is the lesson that you see from Thessalonians, and that's good for parents to understand that, for teachers, for police officers, everyone to understand when you can, sometimes you can't, to be pastoral. And you can't do that if you're not a good person of prayer. That's essential. We're going to be back with Justin on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Catholic Audio Media Podcast on your favorite podcast platform. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts. Previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com. Your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media. We're back, and so we're going to switch over to part 2 of our interview with Justin, who is talking to us about the reality of helping gay people come to church and helping the church minister to gay people. And the problem seems to be that because people have this definition, then someone who simply wants to do something like go to church is instantly say no, sorry, you don't belong here. Yeah. And what I'm understanding from what you're teaching, that happens not infrequently.
Yeah, and there's obviously nuance to that, because obviously I can show up at church and nobody's gonna, stop me at the doors and say, no, you shouldn't be here. But I think it's what happens in some of those conversations with friends where there's pushback. Mm-hmm. Should you be going to church? What does that look like? Should maybe it's somebody who is in a same-sex relationship and they're they're thinking about returning to church for the first time in a long time. Maybe they've got kids and they're kind of asking that question, do I want faith to be part of my family's life? And suddenly there can be a gatekeeping that happens at the door of, well, if you're going to be Catholic, then, you have to agree with all of these things, almost like before you walk in the doors. Or there's like an expiration date of, okay, you're welcome at Mass, but at a certain point, you have to get in line and believe these things because this is it. Or even too, I think that some people are lucky and they never hear a homily about LGBT people, and some people like me, I will say I'm kind of one of the unusual people. I, for whatever reason, have the worst luck when picking churches and have a disproportionate number of bad homilies about LGBT people that I've heard. And yeah, I think that I just wish that there was more of this practice of accompaniment, of recognizing that, whoever you are, you are not solely responsible for what somebody does or doesn't believe. You are part of somebody's story, but you are not responsible for how they are or not practicing their faith.
How do you define accompaniment? And before I go any further, there's a bishop in the Midwest that uses that quite a bit in this ministry.
Yeah.
And how do you define that?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, it is starting with forming a friendship with someone, and forming a genuine friendship with someone where you enjoy being with this person, they enjoy being with you. You're not with them as a project. You're not friends with them to evangelize. That kind of you wouldn't. It's not like you're waiting for a part of somebody's life to change, for it to be worth it for you to be friends with them. So I think it really has to start with a genuine relationship there of mutual enjoyment, mutual friendship. And then I think, especially if there's something where there's disagreement, and I've seen this in my own life, I've got friends where we have disagreements, and it's not as if we say, hey, we're never going to talk about it. We're never going to bring this up. It's, hey, this is part of our lives. We're going to share it, but we're not going to try and convince each other of the other. We can push back. We can say, hey, I don't think this is a healthy part of your life. I want better for you than this. But there's still that commitment at the end of the day that regardless of what we choose, we're still there to be friends with each other because we just genuinely love and care for each other.
One of the things people who know me well know that I define Catholicism in prayer. Prayer is it. And one of the issues that I really struggle with is all these people who are, and I preach on this all the time, always preaching about rules. And I'm like, if you're not involved in prayer, the rules, well, as I like to say, you can be an atheist and follow Catholic morality. And so it's always prayer. And I always get frustrated when people are preaching, especially when they're preaching morality, and I'll notice this all the time, and you never hear the word prayer, ever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I get accused every once in a while in my comments of being Protestant, which I spent a lot of time in other non-denominational circles. I love other Christians. That's where I learned how to read the Bible and pray, and just so much of my faith does come from other Christian circles, and so there's certainly a strong influence. But I think that because of that, there is this huge emphasis on relationship with Jesus, and relationship with Jesus that I experienced through the sacraments, And I think that so often people get so focused on, oh, this person's gay, this person disagrees with this church teaching, so I need to convince them to stop that so that they can be part of the church. And it's like, no. Church is the family of God. And there's and the first step in anything is, what is your relationship with God like? What is your relationship with Jesus like? That's what changes hearts. That's what gets people to do anything. And I just think we forget that we're not Catholic for the rules. We're Catholic because of our relationship with God.
And you will find that is Catholic teaching right there.
Yes. Oh yeah.
That's absolutely true. So you're right. And I get really frustrated with that. And then you get frustrated along those same lines with the people who say, no, relationship with God, that is Protestant stuff. And I quote Cardinal Sarah, who says, no, that's exactly what Catholicism is. It is a relationship with God. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So in light of that, you see this whole understanding that the Lord is calling people, regardless of who they are. And I don't know if you know this story. In, I think it was 1964, CBS was doing a report on Martin Luther King. And there was they had their cameras in a classroom, and one of the boys, they're all black, obviously, because he was speaking in their city. And you know, there are many in the black community that are very resistant about anything gay. Well, it was important because one of the boys, he's probably about 14, said to Martin Luther King, the only way he understood it, I see men the way other boys see women. Mm-hmm. And, of course, I forget what he responded, but one of the things I brought up, I interviewed Eve Tushnet about 3-4 years ago, and I said, there is no way you can tell me that someone didn't say the same thing to Jesus at some time.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know, that whole thing. You know, how do you define that? And, you know, the whole bit.
Yeah.
The term gay is fairly new.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. The Village Voice didn't use it until the first time they used it was during the Stonewall riots. First time it ever, and that was what, 1969.
Yeah.
So it's not a long term, and even the term of homosexuality is only about 200 years old. Mm-hmm. It was not understood in the time of Paul. And so when people say, well, it says right there in the Bible that he condemns this, actually, if you read what he actually wrote, which granted, I don't read Greek, but I read Latin, right? Enough Latin to get by. And the Latin leads me to understand the Greek. He did not, he couldn't have been speaking directly of this. He understood there were two kinds of relationships. There was married and celibate, period. That's all he understood. And so what he's condemning, which understandably is something that actually exists in some countries, where you have a man who has a wife, a woman on the side, and a man on another side. Mm-hmm. That's what he was condemning, because he wouldn't have understood it within the context of today.
Yeah.
I don't know if any thoughts on that.
Yeah, I mean, this goes back forever. I mean, as long as I can remember reading and learning about homosexuality from the Catholic perspective. I just don't find the Bible, like the clobber passages, I'm putting air quotes there, to be actually convincing evidence, one way or the other. I think it is, ignorant to say that the Bible doesn't say anything about activity between two men. But I also think that it is equally ignorant to say that it is definitive about same-sex relationships. Because I think, again, I also do not study Greek. I read a little bit of Latin. But like for people who are scripture scholars, there's just, I think there's a level of nuance and ambiguity that exists in so many of those passages that is not trying to read something away or ignore something, but I think if you're going to have an honest discussion, you have to recognize that there's a phrase that Paul made up that isn't used anywhere else. He's talking specifically about cult temple worship at one point. And I think people can say, "Oh, well, Jesus said this." It's like, well, I think we have to honor the words of Jesus and not put words in his mouth that aren't there. Because I love what you said. We know that there was somebody who came up to Jesus and said something like that. And unfortunately, we don't have the response.
That's right.
That he said to that. Mm-hmm.
But it's good in the sense that, well, first of all, one of the things that we know is we have what the Bible says. Mm-hmm. But what is not in the Bible, and St. Augustine addressed this, so did St. Thomas Aquinas, is the follow-up conversation. It's just not there.
Yeah.
And it's an interesting thing St. Augustine said, and that's part of what our world is doing today. He said, at the end of the Gospel of John, there's that famous line, Jesus said so many things that there wouldn't be enough books in the world to hold all those accounts. And St. Augustine said, The real thing is that what he means is the human mind wasn't big enough to understand everything he said. And this is the reason why Jesus didn't write anything down. Because if he did, then everything would be superficial. This is St. Augustine. I don't have the quote exactly right. Everything would be superficial. This is what Jesus said. This is what we have to do. It's similar to what people do with Sola Scriptura. And he's saying, no, this is what the Holy Spirit is all about, to us understanding, not just saying, well, this is what the passage says, this is what it means. No, because there's so much that isn't there.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this
Go ahead.
Oh, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
Yeah, I wonder, I think given the climate of uncertainty that we live in today, I certainly have seen, even in just like the past 10 or 15 years, like this real push, especially within a lot of Catholic spaces, towards certainty, towards wanting to have all the answers, towards wanting to have that black and white. This is what the Catholic Church teaches. Look at how simple it is. Fall in line and believe it. And I wonder if I think for me, kind of returning to mystery, returning to owning the fact that this world is messy, and that there is so much that we just have to figure out, that we don't understand. And I wonder if you've seen that as a priest as well, just that push towards black and white, and kind of how you respond.
Mm-hmm. I'll actually go another step that really absolutely sends me through the roof.
Yeah.
Is the people who will come to church and tell me that Father so-and-so on YouTube said this, that, and the other thing, and this is what they have to do. And I have to say, Father so-and-so on YouTube is wrong. Mm-hmm. And there's more than one Father so-and-so on YouTube.
Yeah.
And that's just, and I could show them exactly where. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Well, go ahead.
Go ahead. No.
Well, I remember, this is years ago now. I was it might be in Matthew. I can't remember now. Somebody just like, you've got better than me will know. But in the same gospel, and I was reading like big stretches at a time, not just like a chapter, but a few chapters in one sitting at this point. And it was like, Jesus says, those who aren't with me are against me. Mm-hmm. And then literally like a chapter or two later, Jesus says, whoever is not against me is with me. And I'm just like, and it was one of those, like, I'm flipping back and forth between the two pages. Like, I'm in the same gospel, right? Yeah. And it was just this, it was as if the gospel writer was just wanting to clear it up for everybody down the road of like, there is not a black and white. And there are some things that are black and white. I don't want to come across as a total relativist, but I think the gospel writer must have just been wanting to hit the fact that Jesus said things that were contradictory. Mm-hmm. But the focus isn't, these are contradictions, how do we resolve them? But how do we, how do we contextualize it? How do we understand the deeper truth that's going on here? That it's not about the literal message of, am I against Jesus? Am I with Jesus? It's like, what is the heart of Jesus's message there?
We're going to hear more from Justin tomorrow in the third and final part of our interview. Remember, you can find him at empty-chairs.org or on YouTube at Empty Chairs Home. You also can find him on Instagram. But anyway, use those two to help you find on Instagram, because I don't have Instagram, so I don't have a clue. So in any case, we're going to see you tomorrow. Remember, we're at CatholicAudioMedia.com or your favorite podcast platform. You can find them listed there. Have yourself a blessed day. You can now leave a message for us, which we can air and discuss on this program. Just call 617-297-7452. That's 617-297-7452. 617-297-7452. Feel free to call, leave a comment, a question, or even feedback, and we may play it on the air. I can discuss your comment or question as well, so give that a try. 617-297-7452, 617-297-7452. Don't forget to subscribe to us on Patreon. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Patreon.com/Catholic Audio Media. Check us out. Check what we have to offer. Previews of upcoming podcasts, previews of upcoming columns over at catholicaudiomedia.substack.com, your ability to comment, make suggestions, even make suggestions in upcoming programs. Check us out, patreon.com, Catholic Audio Media.